Hello, everyone. It's back for round number 2 of the Forever Jackson interviews. We started with Shane, and today it's all about a man who loves his coffee, loves his superheroes, loves to dive, and has been a great mate of mine for about 10 years now. His name's Greg Malone. He's one of our lead techies. He's worked with us on and off throughout a decade. And he also was one of the people that got me through one of the darkest times in my career, which we touch base on and talk about, as well as many other things in and out of Forever Jackson, about Greg Malone and his wonderful life. We are going to be filming more of these coming up. We've got another one being filmed very soon with one of our lead dancers. I won't name, I'll let you find out. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and also follow us on all our social media pages. Enjoy, and I will see you for the next one. So here he is, the man himself, a man I've known for probably about 10 years now, I reckon. It must be something like that. Close to that, thinking back to when I first, probably a bit longer than that actually, probably something like that anyway. A man I have many things in common with, many likes and similar dislikes as well. And he's here today to have a chat and find out a few more things about him. It is the wonderful Greg Malone. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. All the better for seeing you, because it's been ages since I last actually saw you.
Just trying to think when it was.
It would have been a gig, I'm pretty sure of that, but God knows how long ago, like a few years, I reckon, a couple of years, I think, probably a couple of years, I reckon.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I think it might have been a hotel off the top of my head. Possibly your lovely other half might have been with us as well, comes to mind.
Ah, yes,
I think it
it's
might have
ringing
been that
bells.
one. So, but we're here to chat to you, find out a few things about you, give all of our followers a bit more insight into some of the wonderful people that makes the world of Forever Jackson tick, and you of course are one of those wonderful people. So just quickly explain to people, how did we first meet? How did you get involved in Forever Jackson?
How did I get involved in Forever Jackson? So I was working out in a hotel in Tenerife. Must have been around about 2010. It's 2010 that I started there.
So, yeah.
And I think you were one of the earlier fly-out acts, weren't you?
Certainly 2010. I'm pretty sure I was going to Tenerife.
Yeah, so I was doing the lighting and sound for a lot of stuff, and you came out as a flyout with Jen and Sync for your first one.
That's right, the one and only time we did a Sensatory with some dancers, and we had a nightmare getting there because it had snowed. It was 2010, obviously. It had snowed really, really heavy over here, and it got delayed by something like 26 hours or something crazy like that about us getting out there. And we had such an arse to
I
get there.
remember it literally being, it was tight for you, wasn't it? It was literally like land in sound check, but it was a late sound check as well, just because it had to be. Yeah, I recall that. Yeah,
because we would have flown out the night before, which was the plan, or the day before even, and then done the show the next day. But as the flybacks tended to be back then, but we'd had awful weather over here. Like, I mean, people may remember or not, but we were hitting temperatures of like -15, -16, something crazy like that. I remember, in fact,
I don't know. I was nice and
you
warm.
don't know, you was in sunny Tenerife, still tanned, while the rest of us were looking more like Casper the Ghost. But I was driving home from Leeds the night before flying out, and after doing a show up there and doing like 40 on the M11 at night, like late at night, which is just unheard of because the snow was so mad everywhere. And it was like the scenes from The Walking Dead. There was just cars just parked on the sides of the motorways. And got home. I remember phoning the airline, I won't say who, and saying, is this going to fly? Is this definitely going to fly? And they're like, yeah, it's not cancelled. It's all going ahead. I'm like, are you sure? Because I don't want to drive to Gatwick to find out that it's not happening. Because it's not just me. There's a few of us flying. No, it's definitely
This sounds like a very familiar story, but a few years later.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what it is, why they can't just say, "No, it is cancelled, definitely." Because we got in the car, we drove all the way to Gatwick. Literally, we were just outside Gatwick in like standstill traffic because of how because of how bad the weather had been and how crazy everybody was trying to get in and out of Gatwick due to flights being cancelled. And like I'd spoke to them probably two, maybe three times before this, phoned them just one more time and said, "Are you sure this is flying?" And they went, "Of course it's not flying. Have you looked outside?" And I was like, "Well, why have you said it's flying so?"
Your eyes working, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, you go by what these people are telling you. It's their job. It's their business. You're thinking they've probably got these amazing machines that clear the runway really nice and quick. A spade, basically, someone with a spade. And but you just go. So yeah, we had a real crazy one getting out for that, and it was like I said, it was the one and only time that we got dancers out into a sensory.
Mm.
But yes, I have fond memories of working with you in Tenerife. It was always good fun, always with Spider Tech, and
Spider Tech, legend.
yeah, little for those of you not sure, Greg had like a Spider-Man figure that used to be on the tech board all the time, like in different poses, regularly appearing on social media and stuff. So yeah, it was good, and we
I
were
think he's
doing
got
that
more
with
followers than me.
and I remember we were back and forth with you, certainly I was, for a number of years, because you were how long were you out in Tenerife for?
I managed to blag that job for 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so you came out when we found out that you were coming out as a regular uh fixture, as it were.
Yes.
You were there for a season pretty much, and that was when things started to get quite interesting, I think.
Very much so, because you were one of the techs that always, and there's I've been lucky. I've got to know a lot of great techs, a lot from the Sensatory days, to be honest, from doing multiple Sensatories, and they seem to have a breed of tech there that wanted to make shows great, like weren't just there to do their job and go home, that were like, I want to do some cool stuff. You especially, every time I got there for a sound check, and I'd always turn up early, you were always doing something new, something different for that time, even though it was the same show. You was like, I'm going to try this time, I'm going to do this time, and it was
Well,
always massively appreciated because it made it exciting.
well, it got to the point because we knew that you were coming out and your show, because normally, like with flyouts, um, you'll just rock and roll light in their show.
Yeah.
It's like you'll have a load of just kind of presets on the desk, and you'll just kind of bounce between them. It'll still look great, it'll still
Yeah,
look nice,
of course.
but because of you had the video content as well, and it just seemed to make sense to me, and it seemed to be the right thing to do to invest just a bit more time and just get your show lighting wise just kind of slick. And so we knew what was going to happen each time, and it got to the point where actually the lighting was almost like a little bit of another performer in your show.
Yeah, massively.
Because there were a lot of things that you were doing where the lighting would follow, and it would just be just kind of aimed for that precision.
Well, the one thing that you had over a lot of the other Sense toys is that you had a proper stage setup with a proper big screen actually sort of flown above, but sort of on the back of the stage.
Mm.
And a lot of the other Sense toys weren't as lucky to have that. So you had almost like a theatre setting, which really helped. But I remember Tenerife was one of the ones I probably did more than anywhere else. And it was one where, as you said, because it was so regular for me, lots of things sort of got involved. And when Michael Jackson's is basically a show that sort of warrants production and backing
Mm.
dancers and things like that. So when it's just me by myself, it's kind of hard to give that level of production, that level of sort of pizzazz, if you like. So when you've got someone like yourself who's throwing lots of effort into the lighting, and then on some of the occasions we had some of the Sensatory cast would get involved and be backing dancers for a couple of the songs, which was always quite cool.
Thriller, didn't
Yeah,
they came out for Thriller, didn't they, like crawling out from underneath the
yeah.
stage? That
And I
was, yeah, I
think
remember that.
Hannah used to come and strut on The Way You Make Me Feel as well.
Hmm.
I think, and it
Yeah.
just made it such a much cooler thing for me to come and do, because obviously when we started, it used to be just half-hour sets. You come
Mm.
and do a half hour with another tribute, and then you duet at the end, and then
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
that became a peak season thing, and then it literally just became you come out by yourself and do an hour, which
Mm.
is absolutely cool. It's what we're used to as acts, but it was great that I knew anytime I was going to Tenerife, there'd be a real great level of production. There'd be, um, you'd have staging, you'd have lighting, you'd have screen work, and on occasions I'd have backing dancers that literally would just sort of just learn the thriller dance in whatever
Mm.
way possible, whether it was what we did or from watching some of our footage or just watching something that was just similar, whether it was Michael Jackson's video or just something similar that they could then just pick up and do behind me. It was quite cool. It was nice to know that there was that sort of level of support at those venues. Um, but yeah, I used to love it. It was great fun, and it was a very good time for me because it was a busy time. I was doing a lot of shows,
Mm.
and it was always nice to see familiar faces like yourself. Like I remember coming over for dinner on one of the trips to
Yeah.
yours, which was really nice to have, like, because at that time I think that might have been 2013 or 14, one of the two, something like that.
One of the later ones.
And
That would have been.
by then we were obviously really close, good friends, and I was seeing you pretty much every 2 weeks.
Mm.
Um, and we'd go out for a drink or something afterwards, or sometimes meet up for a coffee beforehand just to catch up. And yeah, like to have home cooked food at a time when I probably hadn't had a home cooked meal for probably 5 months, just because it was crazy. I was so busy. I was all over the place. So when I would be at home, you couldn't
Mm.
be asked to cook. It's too much effort. So
Yeah.
it was too much. So I
Yeah.
really appreciated things like that. It was wonderful.
No, it definitely went from that kind of professional courtesy, and engagement to, yeah, he's my mate.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It definitely became a lot more of a friendship as we went along.
very much so. Very, very
Yeah.
much so. So everybody has an aspiration in life. Everybody sort of, as they get older, sort of pick a path or a route to go down. What made you choose teching? Was it something you fell into? Was it something that you always was interested in?
Um, when I must have been probably about 10, was it? Something like that. I can't remember. When I was quite young. Um, I ended up joining a theatre group in Dumfries, where we were living at the time. And I ended up not being able to perform just because I can't remember if I had something wrong with my foot or something like that. I really can't remember. But I ended up kind of going, right, I'm not going to be able to do the performance. And I ended up kind of seeing a bit more of what was going on backstage. And I just found it quite interesting. And then when we moved, I ended up, obviously, drama was my thing. I enjoyed I enjoyed the other subjects, but I really enjoyed drama. But I did some performance, but then I also dabbled in the backstage stuff. And I was like, this is much more interesting, you know. um, so yeah, that kind of passion for backstage kind of started from there, really. And then I went off and I tried. I did another couple of courses at college, and I dropped out of both of them. I did computing because I thought my dad's into computers. He does all right financially. Maybe that's the thing to go down. I like being on computers. I sat there and it's like, yeah, it's all right. But interestingly enough, my tutor also played in a band,
Okay.
and they were playing at Rock City. I don't know if you know Rock City in
I know
Nottingham, but
Rock City. Yeah,
it
it
is
was
like,
one of the places.
yeah, it's got huge renown as a venue, and so they were playing there, and we had very similar music tastes, and so me and my friend ended up just kind of roadieing for them a little bit, you know.
Cool.
So again, even doing that, it's like I'm still getting involved with the performance side of things.
Yeah.
You know, nipping upstairs into the main stage and watching Rob Zombie for free. Thank you very much. I'll have some of that.
Nice.
So yeah. So I did that, and then I dropped out of that because it was just like, I'm not feeling it. Went into music production, and I did a bit of that. And again, that was interesting, but it just didn't quite grab me. And then I found a technical theatre course. I was like, I've got to give that a shot. I've got to. And actually, understandably, the tutor at the time when we were doing the interviews was like, "You've dropped out of 2 courses. Why should I take you on?" It's like, I've got no idea. I really want to do this. And she's like, "I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to give you a chance."
Oh, great.
And she did. She would have been well within her right to say, "I think you're a bit flaky." No, but stuck with that course. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then, so I spent the 2 years doing that. And then when I worked in bars for 4 years, so following that,
that's interesting that you worked in bars for a man who avoids alcohol like religiously. You do now, so perhaps we'll get onto that later. Perhaps.
Cause and effect. Yeah, but I did bar work for a bit, but again, whilst I was there, a little bit of showmanship, but I got quite into flaring.
Okay, cool.
You know, so like the bottle juggling and stuff like that, and I was more kind of technical tricks. But yeah, so kind of doing that behind the bar kept it interesting for me. But then out of the blue one day, my tutor phones me up and says, "What are your I mean, we're talking years later now, probably talking about 2006.
Okay.
So 4 years since I've done the course, and I've not really done anything with it. So I just get a call, and she says, "What your sound skills like?" Like, "Yeah, they're brilliant."
Yeah.
Got no idea. And she's like, "There's this opportunity going to this place that I've heard about. Just get in touch." And that was with a group called the Panto Company, and that was working at Centre Parks at Eldon Forest.
Okay.
And that was a baptism of fire.
Yes.
That's where it's like, was my mouth running, cashing checks? Yeah. So it's an 8-person cast. It's only six to 8. It was track, but it was four radio mics, and I'm just like, I'm way in over my head.
Tough as well. Tough, because we all know very well sort of cast members and mics are it's a tough old world.
But I was very lucky in the cast that I was put with, and yeah, I learned a lot from that, because I had to. So yeah, so from there I ended up going off to I ended up joining TED after that, the entertainment department. So we worked out in Crete, doing the tech stuff for there, and I was actually a bit more established, seasoned tech by this point. I got my head around things. I knew a lot more of what I was doing, and I was actually a bit more qualified to be there. Plus, also, Natalie Dawson, the creative director, wanted me to be there because I could fire breathe as well. And that was one of the other things.
See, there's all these little things that even I've known you for 10 years that I'm now learning, and we've been going for about 10 minutes. So that's amazing.
Yeah, she was on about me like fire. She wanted me to fire breathe in one of the shows. And
whilst doing lighting.
well, thankfully not at that juncture, but I was looking at it, it's like, there's no risk assessment in hell that's going to let us do that in an indoor venue. No chance. So that never actually happened. I'm a bit relieved about that, not gonna lie.
Well, even in the outdoor venue in Crete, it's a small stage and everybody's very up close and personal. So yeah, you're talking one slight trip and you're talking melting clientele faces.
Well, you're certainly talking vast sums of money going to injured parties. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been burnt on a sensory resort?
Yes. So yeah, it all kind of just stepping stone from that point on, really. To the point where, obviously, working in the theatre sector, I am now furloughed.
Yes, yes. I forgot that you're actually a resident technician now at is it Nottingham Theatre?
Theatre Royal Nottingham, yeah.
Theatre Royale, that's it, yes. So how's that been through obviously the pandemic, theatres have been affected very, very much so. One of the big things that I've read is that there's a concern that maybe 80% of these venues aren't going to come out the other end of it. How's Nottingham Theatre Royale coping?
Um, Obviously, it's just an empty building at the minute. I think, given the fact it's a council venue, I think that's helping.
Mm-hmm.
There have been concerns about jobs.
Yeah.
More so in other departments. Yeah, it's tricky. It's just playing that waiting game and seeing what happens, how long we can keep going for. I think the larger theatres like that will probably come out of it very, very scathed, but
Yeah.
they'll get through it the other side.
I think there's going to be a lot of reworking over the next sort of 18 to 24 months. Personal opinion on it all, very quickly, of course, is that I think, sadly, obviously, hospitality is going to be the last thing that comes back and is going to suffer the most, especially anything that's got to sell a ticket to survive. Because most people maybe don't know, but theatres need to be selling about 80% of capacity on most shows to make a profit. Oh, yeah. When you're sitting there potentially picking a show to go and watch and you're looking at the ticket price and thinking, 20 quid's a bit much, the theatre probably sees about at absolute maximum a fiver of that, if that. Probably less than that, realistically. More often than not, an average split on a show is something like 70-30 these days, I believe. So, and with the theatre seeing 30%. So for every pound, the theatre gets 30p. So it's, I do feel for the venues. And I think, speaking as an act, it's something that we've all got to work and help each other out with so that we can come back strong and back to where we were before all of this kicked in. Not just theatres, anywhere that's trying to sell a ticket for a gig. So but hopefully, I think we will do. I think it will happen. It's just going to take time.
It will get there in some capacity or another.
I think
it's just
so.
as you say, it's a case of when and how.
So outside of Forever Jackson, obviously you've been teching for a long time and all over the world.
I'd be good at it by now, wouldn't you?
You think so? You think so? And yet, no, I'm kidding. So tell us about some of the other shows you've worked on. What's your favourites? You got any sort of real highlights in your career that really stand out?
I mean, obviously, there's all the shows that come through the theatre, which, a lot of the time are a lot of fun to work on. But obviously, there's your show, which I absolutely adore working on.
Yeah, I'm here staring at you. But we do have a lot of fun when you're gigging with us. So
also, there's some guys have all the luck, which was quite a weird one for me. Which is, it's a Rod Stewart tribute.
Very much.
But when I first kind of got off of the gig, I was like, oh, no. I couldn't stand Rod Stewart at the time.
You're not talking about the guy playing him, just Rod Stewart in general.
Just whenever I heard him, it's like if ever he came on the radio, it's like, no, off, don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that kind of.
Be disgusted with you. She's a massive Rod Stewart fan.
Who's that? Sorry,
my missus Gemma. So she's a big Rod Stewart fan. So
she may forgive me by the end of this. But I don't know. It's the same with like, is it Kelly Jones from? Is it Stereophonics?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just that kind of tone of voice. It's just
I know
it
what you
doesn't.
mean.
It's
like it's
me
the
a
sort
little
of
bit.
voice you have at the end of a night out. That rasp.
Yeah, not starting with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'm partially self-employed, but partially PAYE. I was like, I've got to, I've at least got to have a look. And actually, I went to watch the show, and I was like, by the end of it, I was like, foot tapping a little bit. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on? And yeah, so actually, I was going to say exposing myself to the show. That probably isn't the right way to put it, but going and watching the show. Yeah, I just, he did it so well.
Yes,
Paul Metcalf.
He really
and
does.
The band was so good. It's like, I can get involved in this because I had a really good time. I enjoyed the show a lot.
The thing, it's you don't have to like what you're listening to, but you can really appreciate when it's done well. And that alone can be insightful enough to want you to be involved and sort of be part of whatever's going on. I remember seeing Paul.
Yeah.
We were doing a Christmas corporate event together, somewhere, I want to say Coventry or Birmingham or something like that. And it was in a hotel, and they had a little stage, and I was PA. I bought my own PA that all the acts used, and I can't remember who was taken with me. I want to say Chris Redfern, another name from the Sensory days, who actually also used to tech at Rock City. And
yes, that's right.
Yeah. And I remember listening to Paul in soundcheck, and I was backstage at the time thinking, why are they playing Rod Stewart? Like, shouldn't he just be singing it? And I come out and saw Paul singing, just that almost that stereotypical thing of he ain't singing. And I just had to stand and just stare and watch for a bit, going, oh my God, he is. Like, it's insane how good he is. And then sort of, he was on after me, so I quickly got my makeup off, and obviously I wasn't going anywhere because I was using my PA. And I remember just standing there and watching and thinking, this guy is wasted on small stages. He's too good. When he's got the glasses on, he is Rod Stewart. His hair's great. The sound of like the voice, everything. And I remember speaking to him and saying, do you do, we were heavily involved in doing theatres at the time. And I remember sitting down with him backstage and saying, do you do theatres? He goes, we do the odd one we put together. And I went, do you want to do a lot more? Because you really should, and you definitely could. Rod Stewart is like stereotypical cannon fodder for theatres. It's perfect for what you class as a typical theatre audience, an audience that can come out any day of the week without any sort of gripes or worries or financial issues or whatever. And it just went from there. I introduced him to Richard, who's another production guy that we've worked with for years, and actually got you involved, I think, with the Rod Stewart show. And I introduced him to who we were doing theatres with at the time. And it's just went from there. He went from strength to strength. They're absolutely creaming it, I think, in the theatres. They've done really well. Obviously, not right now, but it will absolutely come back again. So, for him especially. So, yeah, he's a very, very good act. Really, really solid act. Really good.
And the musicians he's got with him as well.
Yes. Insanely good.
Phenomenal. I don't know if you saw, I mean, this is the kind of level of musician we're talking about, but did you watch that West End show that was on the other day?
I didn't. I think it's still available. I'm hoping to get around to catching up on it.
Well, I can't remember who's singing or what song it is, but there's one point where this guy comes out and he starts playing the saxophone. He's like, I recognize him. Oh my God. And it's one of the guys from Paul's band.
No, really?
Yeah. But then when actually you're there talking to him and he's like, oh yeah, I've worked with this like super famous person.
Wow.
You know, this is the level of musician that Paul's working with.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's
Well, that I can
unreal.
I can second it. You know, we've had people like Shane was, as we went through in the previous interview. Excuse me. Shane was like this close to becoming lead guitarist for Bon Jovi when Richie Samora left. Like, it's mad. Like,
That's, I
the
mean,
level
Shane
of
is
musicianship.
such an amazing guitarist.
Yeah, he is. Well,
Makes me
we
sick.
won't give him any more props. His head's big enough. It's fine. So, but yeah. So, one of the things that you worked on us, with us, should I say, was one of our biggest contracts to date, which was when we did a 3.5 week residency out in Johannesburg.
Mm.
The first sort of thing that we'd ever done a bit like that. We'd done shows abroad when we might do one or two back to back. We'd never really done a residency, let alone in another country of such a high profile as well.
Mm.
Like, we were on national television, we were on all kinds of national radio stations. It was a real big thing.
Yeah, I remember kind of on the drive from the airport, just kind of looking out, and there's your face on a billboard.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
big
it's
old
like
billboards
that's
everywhere. It was crazy. It was one of those things where it was a bit surreal. I
mm,
will say that from my side of things, it was a
I
very
think that's fair
surreal
to say.
experience, and it was, yeah, insane, really insane. Tell us about what some of your favorite memories were from that contract.
Favorite memories from that contract. Obviously, I remember kind of getting to the hotel, and then we got the shuttle to the theatre just for a bit of a walk around and see what's going on. I don't know if like I don't know if there's like favorite, but it's certainly a standout. Is when we were sat there and we were having that security meeting. Do you remember?
I
And we were
probably
there.
wasn't there at that point, which we'll go
Oh yes.
into.
Mm. We're sat there and we're talking to the head of security for the theatre, and he's going, "You've got a shuttle bus, you've got escorts. You don't deviate from that when you're coming to and from this theatre." You know, and he's saying the outcome could be pretty bad for you. Um, I'm not going to go into detail on this, but it's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
this is a bit of a culture shock.
we all got given some sort of quite stern and important information, and a few horror stories potentially of what it's like to be in Johannesburg. You know, you turned out a bit like some other places in the world, but you take a you take a turn down a wrong street and you might not ever come out of there again. Those
Yeah,
sorts of stories. Um, from my experience, certainly from just walking around the streets, and not that we did that often by ourselves, people were lovely. People were
mm.
just, as long as you were in the right place, some of the nicest people. It was
It's
like
just a
they
case of
had a
knowing where
point to
that right
prove.
place was.
Yes. But it was a bit, especially in the theatre, it was like they had a point to
Mm.
prove. Johannesburg isn't this bad place. It's wonderful.
The theatre was amazing,
Yeah. And the
you
staff
know,
was great.
and the staff were awesome. Yeah, that is one thing that I will um, certainly, you know, take with me to the grave is just the care and attention that that crew had
Yeah.
for the show. I mean, I do remember walking in and we're kind of looking at it going, everything's a little bit upstage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I'm not sure if the plan had been, uh, I think the plan had been followed to the letter,
Yes.
understandably so, but I think that it was just wrong. So
I
having
think it,
to,
I think an sorry to interrupt. I think an element of it was that thing of you had to be there to know
yeah,
that if that works or not. Because in another theatre where you would have placed that mid stage or whatever would have worked. You, once you got there, you realised actually how big this venue was.
huge,
Massive.
huge.
And for a venue that held just over 1,000. Like, we've been to places that hold sort of like 1,200, 1,500 people. Like, you go to Cliffs, and the stage though at Joburg was about 3 times the size of
Yeah,
Cliffs. It was huge. massive, massive stage.
Yeah, I think as I say, in defence of that, it's not exactly somewhere where you can just kind of go and do a recce.
No.
You know, you're working off bits of paper and kind of going, this is going to be my best guesstimate. So yeah, I remember one of my first kind of jobs being, hi guys, great to be here. Can you move everything down a couple of meters, please?
Glad I was
really sorry. Yeah, that was like, this is going to end well. But yeah, they were all kind of like, yep, fine. Yeah, we thought it was a bit off stage as well. All right, brilliant, let's go. You know, yeah, so that was good. But going back to your original question, highlights, that the safari,
yes,
no doubt. You know, that was such an amazing experience. You know, literally being within spitting distance of a rhino. Not that I would spit on a rhino because that's just rude, but
might appreciate it. Might like the sort of the moisture.
Cool down a little bit. Yeah. You're looking a bit crinkly there, mate. Yeah, that was absolutely stunning. You know, and just say kind of going out into the local area as and when you could. You know, again, getting shuttled to that area, and go to that market.
Yeah,
you know, just seeing some of the live acts that were on there as well. It's like it was
market. Oh my god, the food! Just not even just that market, even at the theatre, everywhere we ate, it's just amazing. Beautiful food, like, and you're paying compared to what we pay over here for those kind of meals.
nothing.
It was a fraction of the price.
Yeah,
mental, absolutely mental. Now, we touched briefly a moment ago on my absence to start with, and that I encountered some issues getting to South Africa.
in
I was
all
there for
fairness,
some
we
of the
encountered
journey.
some issues getting out of South Africa, so fair's fair.
Did. Yes, we did, of course, of course.
That was what I was alluding to when you were saying about speaking to the airlines.
Yes, we will. We'll get to that. In fact, we will get to that in a minute. We won't name names. We won't get into naughty business like that. But
Oh, I will.
oh well, Gregory, please don't get me into all sorts of trouble. But yes, so I had a few issues getting to South Africa. I got halfway there, got to Egypt. That wasn't a problem. But said airline decided not to check things prior to me leaving Heathrow, and it was in Egypt. It was brought to my attention that my passport wasn't applicable to go into South Africa, as you needed 2 blank pages.
Too heavily stamped.
Yes, too heavily stamped. I had no blank pages, which is a random thing because in all the questioning I asked, I got none of that information back whatsoever. And this was before the days that I used to check government websites and stuff to check these things. So in my defense, I hold my hands up and say a big part of it's my fault. But on the flip side of it, when I've been traveling as much as I've been traveling over the previous 3-4 years or so, and I mean, at one stage, I think 2014 in a calendar year, I did 92 flights for work. It was something stupid like that. So when you're used to doing that much traveling and being told you need this, you need that, and you sort it, and I'd always ask, what do I need to be there? When you've asked that same question, you've been told, no, it's all covered. You assume it's all covered. So anyway, yes, I got stuck in Egypt for 24 hours and went through probably one of the lowest points of my career to date. Certainly something that's given me, that at the time gave me huge levels of anxiety, because one of the things obviously that some people may not understood, this was a contract that was financially being funded by me, and everybody was on guarantees that was working with us. And so if it didn't happen, obviously I was going to need to pay everybody still for 3 weeks work. So it was one of those situations where I'm like, well, I'm stuck in Egypt. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get things sorted. They might turn around and go, yeah, it'll just be 7 days and then you'll be able to get out there. And it's like, no, I've got a show in 2 days. The first one sold out. I need to be there. So yeah, so it was very, very anxiety inducing, something that I've never felt as bad as since that day.
Mm.
Um, but
There's so much riding on it.
huge
You know,
levels. There was a lot of pressure. I didn't want to be letting any of you guys down who had taken time out of other work and declined other work potentially so that you could do this, just to be in a situation where you then end up coming home, but obviously still getting paid, but you lose the experience of it all. So yeah, it was a very, very yin and yang contract that was for me, because
mm,
on the one side of it, some of the best shows we've done, some of the best audiences we've ever had the privilege to perform for. Meet and greets would last for nearly an hour every
yeah, I
night,
remember that.
because
Yeah.
you just have queues of people. We got treated like we were celebrities, like we were the actual real deal. I was doing national radio shows all geared up. I slept twice in the makeup so that I could get to a morning breakfast show on a radio or TV or whatever.
I remember that.
Um, Fortunately, something I've never had to do since. And so there was some real great highs, but some real deep lows for me,
Mm,
because there was a lot of worry going on. And you and I roomed together, and I have to say, you got me through quite a lot of those lows. You were probably one of the only people that maybe knew a little bit more of what I was going through at the time, because obviously I wasn't sleeping brilliantly because of it.
mm,
And I remember having a conversation with you about that I was really struggling to get to sleep. It was almost like a bit of PTSD off the back of I went through in Cairo to get out there, because I don't want to go into massive details of it, but it was everything and anything that could possibly try and stop me from getting to South Africa had a really good go at it. Like
mm.
really try to, from things like the the British embassy losing their system completely going down while I was there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The fact that they didn't know if I needed the visa that I'd had to buy in Egypt put into this other emergency travel document. So I had to go to
Mm.
another building where nobody spoke Egyptian. And I was lucky that I just had this wicked taxi driver who just stuck with me for the whole day.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Yeah.
fact that I had to go and hunt down somewhere where I could get passport photos taken, because the British
Mhm.
embassy out there didn't have a machine to do it, to the point where I had to book my flights, and I had to rebook flights, obviously, and they went. They then didn't tell me, oh, certain airports, because I was then going to go, so I could get out as quick as possible. I was going to go via Dubai,
Mm,
and they then, once after I'd booked this, they hadn't told me before. They then said, oh, not sure if the emergency travel document can be used in Dubai. I'm like,
mm.
I've just booked all this, and all of these different things as well as others. It was crazy. And I really, really felt, I've never felt so rough without actually being sick, if you know what I mean. Like
Mm.
without, like, I've never felt so ill without actually having an illness, if you like. So it was a really, really tough time. On stage was some of the best, and then you'd be off stage and it was like, oh my God, like feel like I'm falling apart at times.
Yeah.
But you was so good. You was always helped keep me sane, and we do things like we watch you play retro games and things, which were like, I think he was playing Alien 3, always rings the bell in my mind on your
Oh yeah.
laptop. The
Yeah.
hardest, one of the hardest games, let alone doing it with keys instead of a joystick. Just madness. So for that, I
Yeah,
really
that's right.
go on.
Because I had that emulator, didn't I, on the
Yes,
computer? Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
yes. We were playing all kinds of games on there. It was always good fun.
Mm,
But for all those things, keeping me sane, and I really appreciate it, because I didn't come to the safari because I had other things. I think I had another interview
you had some press, didn't
that
you?
I was going to do, and financially it didn't make sense for me to go and spend more money after I'd spent an extra 1,200 quid to make sure I could get to this gig and go home again. So, or these gigs, should I say? So I couldn't warrant spending more on going away for it on a
Mm,
safari and stuff. So there was all these different things, lots of things which we could have been told more about, have more details on before we got out there. But that said, as I said, there were so many great positives. The team out there were wonderful. Like the tech team were just so cool. Like nothing was too much for them. you know, I remember them welding the apparatus for me to be able to do the lean and welding it onto this stair. You know, you'd never get that anywhere else. Like, you wouldn't get any. They would be like, no, we're just completely like, you know, destroy our stage so that you can come to the show. Don't worry about it. Like, you wouldn't get that. Like, so it was cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, they
Really,
were
really,
very
really
great
good
scene.
time. And out there, for whatever reason, everybody decided that your new name was Max. Can you remember that?
Yes. Yeah,
What?
I remember that.
What?
Yeah.
Do you know why? 'Cause-
I get the feeling it had something to do with sync.
okay.
Basically saying, you don't look like a Greg. You look like a Max. and just from there, I think it stuck.
It's so random because everybody just called you Max, and it was just a thing. It was like nobody questioned it, and I think it must have happened in that 24 hours before I got there, because I came in and everyone's like, "I'll go and ask Max." I'm like,
Who's Max?
"Max, somebody who works here." Max with us. Who's Max? I booked everyone. There's no one called Max. Max, beard, techie. You mean Greg? Yeah, Max. What? What's going on? Like, who just changes people's names? Like, no, you look like a Tarquin. You can be called Tarquin. Oh, just so random. Just so very random. So let's take a break from the main questions. I did this with Shane, and I'm going to try and fit this in on every single one we do. We're going to do a bit of a quick fire round. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, prior to this, I sent you a load of questions.
You didn't send us a quickfire questions.
But I didn't send you the quickfire questions on purpose, because I like it to be a bit more, shall we say,
spontaneous,
intuitive, a bit more sort of reactive rather than thought about. So you're going to have, like Shane, you're going to have the length of a dance break musically. I'm going to ask you as many questions, whatever comes into your head, whatever your quick answer is, blurt it out. They're not the same. No, then some of them are the same, but the majority are different questions to Shane, trying to theme it on people a little bit more, so that I know we're going to get a bit more out of them. So here we go then. Let's get this going. Can you hear that all right? Cool. So your time starts now. Favorite MJ song?
I don't know. Let's say Thriller, but it's probably not. No, Black or White. Black and White.
Okay. Do you have a favorite non-MJ song?
Non-MJ song.
Any other song?
Like probably at the minute it's Karate Body by the Aquabats.
Oh, nice. Okay. Bath or shower?
Shower.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Breathing underwater.
Breathing. Oh, yeah, of course. Favorite TV show?
2 minute choose from. Oh my god, the pressure's real. Favorite TV show? I don't know. Mystery Science Theater.
Okay. What's your pet peeve?
Oh, so many. Quick fire questions.
I tell you what, quick last one. Burps or farts?
What, as in, which do I do more of? Which am I more
Either,
pro? Which am I more against? Burps, they seem a little bit more reasonable. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
That's actually really hard.
Hang on, let me just stop that before that goes back in. There we go. Well done. It is tough. It is tough. I wanted to sort of, I like it to be interesting. Like I'll tell you my favorite question that I put to Shane, and in fact, I'm going to put it to you anyway. Okay. Is if you weren't called Greg, what would you like to be called?
Max.
Obviously, Max. Going to be that. Did you know Shane was apparently originally going to be called Wayne? And they opted, no, not Wayne, let's go with Shane. It's basically the same name, but
it's different.
It's different enough. In fact,
he is a Shane.
Just the right amount enough difference. Yes. That did make me laugh, that. So, when you're not gigging, and we sort of touch base with the whole breathing underwater ability would be useful for you. When you're not gigging, what do you like to do?
Yeah, so scuba diving is a huge passion of mine.
Yes, that's something you picked up your skills in Tenerife, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Basically, it was weird. I'd always wanted to try it, always wanted to do it. Did a little pool dive tester thing in Crete whilst I was out there. That was good. It's like, all right. But then when I was out in Tenerife, I kind of got to a point where it's like I started to have enough money to actually start going, let's go have a look at diving. And then I got pneumonia. I was like,
oh no.
So that well, the doctor said I had pneumonia, and I was just laid up for about a week. Probably should have been longer, by all accounts. It was just after New Year, and yeah, I was told that basically you've had a lung issue. You can't go diving for about a year. I was like,
no.
Brilliant. So I think it must have been round about, that must have happened like 2011. And then I was back home in the UK, nipped to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, your lungs are fine, job's a good one. Can I go diving? Yeah, fill your boots. Mint. So got out there. I'd already been kind of talking to a dive centre. And then I ended up doing a try dive. I was like, give me more.
Yeah.
So then I went and did another one, and then I was like, right, that's it. Let's go do the course now. Did the open water, then went and did the advanced straight on the back of that first one. And that was it by that point. I'd done what I'd probably been about 7, 8 dives. I was like, this is it. This is life changing. So went and did that. Went and did the emergency first response course for that. Did the rescue course. The rescue course is intense, but it's so satisfying.
Really?
It's not easy, but once you've done that, it's like your confidence levels are like boom. Not to the point of arrogance or stupidity,
what makes
but
it so much more difficult to the other courses?
because the open water diver is teaching you the basics.
Yeah.
It's teaching the basic skills, and it's very you. The advanced one is opening your eyes to navigation into a deeper dive and 3 optional dives. Well, not optional, you've got to do them, but 3 elective dives. So experiencing different types. So be that like a wreck dive or a night dive or a photography dive, just something else.
Yeah.
And then when you do the rescue one, you are taught other techniques. It's like you're looking out for other people at this point. First and foremostly, it's like if you end up in a situation, it's how to rescue yourself.
Yes.
Because you can't help anybody else if you're in danger as well and in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's about knowing how to take care of yourself, understanding what's going on, and then the techniques for helping another diver in distress. So doing that, once you've done that, it's like, right, okay, you're a lot more aware of so much more how to deal with things. And again, it's just that huge confidence boost.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to feel a lot freer in the water.
When I remember again during my Sensatory days. No, in fact, it was before Sensatory days when I was in Egypt on a cruise ship doing a contract on a cruise ship. Before my Michael Jackson days, in fact, I did a sort of a introduction dive out in Sharm. I can't remember what the specific one of it was, but it's so surreal. It's like it's being in a totally and another world, almost like another universe when you're down there. And if you go and do it in the right place, because there's some places where it's probably just not worth having a go because the water's just too murky and you're not going to see it. I remember doing another dive in Ibiza and just thinking, this isn't that good. But I did obviously my first experience, luckily being in Sharm, and it was just amazing. I remember going home and thinking, did that just happen? It felt so surreal, so completely otherworldly, being underwater and being amongst all this amazing wildlife and sort of coral and everything else that was under there, and the water's so clear.
Mm.
It was incredible, and it's certainly something I could see myself doing a lot more of if I had the funds, the time. It's not something I'd want to do a lot of in the UK personally. Do you find yourself, do you get an opportunity to dive much in the UK? Is there
Well,
places that you recommend?
I'm in Nottingham, so I'm kind of
Yeah,
right slap bang in the middle
yeah,
of land. There is an area um, not too far away called Stony Cove. It's
I've heard of that.
got a pretty bad rep. Some people are, I think it depends on what you do there. My understanding is that there's a lot of people that will do deeper dives there, because there's so much crap at the bottom. It's like
Right.
you hear these horror stories. There's one of the guys that I was, when I was out in Tenerife, I ended up basically on an internship at the dive shop because they were just like, we're not getting rid of you, are you? May as well put you to use. So one of the guys that I was with there, he was an ex-copper, and he'd done some diving and stuff he'd done loads of dives, thousands, and he was diving at Stony Cove, and he's saying on more than one occasion, he would get to the surface and there'd be police there going, any chance you can nip back down and look for somebody? It's like, well, again, putting that rescue thing, so it's like, if I go back down there, I'm endangering myself because I've already been down there for so long. My levels are all over the shop.
Yeah.
It's not going to be safe for me to return to that depth. But you're saying there's barbed wire at the bottom, people getting their dry suits cut, they're silty. So when they're panicking, it is grim. So that as a dive spot has never massively appealed to me.
No.
I haven't dived in the UK. I know that there are places that are beautiful. You need to look at dry suit diving for it, I believe, for most of those, which is because obviously being out in Tenerife where I was diving and the various and the other spots that I've dived at, it's all just been wetsuit because the water's been warm enough. So dry suit's not something that I've gone into. So that would be so. It's something I'd like to look at, but not at the minute.
Yourself maybe becoming an instructor one day. I know you've got you did your courses so you can instruct, I believe. Am I right?
Well, I did, once I'd done the rescue, I did the dive master course and assistant instructor. So it's kind of, I can teach to an extent, but it's got to be supervised and signed off on by an instructor. I would love to I'd love to be an instructor.
Because it was something I'm sure I'm sure we've talked about it. That's something you was looking at doing out in Tenerife, moving out there and doing it.
Well, this is one of the things my now wife and I, we met out in Tenerife.
Yeah.
And we ended up looking at a couple of places and like, seriously, like, should we do this? Should we do this? But then there were some births at home. It's just like, no, we should go spend some time with the family. You know what? To be fair, for the way that we've been working normally, the amount that we've seen the family, it would be just as much if we were in Tenerife because people are more inclined to come and visit because like, go stay with them, go free holiday.
It's not as big a thing to do either, popping over to Tenerife as it might seem as well. It's not as
4 hours in a plane
and kiddo, especially if they stay with you. Like it's not as big a thing as you're basically paying for some flights essentially, which aren't that expensive to Tenerife. So when you weigh up, say if you lived halfway across the country, probably similar in fuel. To be fair,
well, either fuel or the crazily priced trains.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just much more cost effective and better.
So we touched on that you are currently obviously freelance teching. You also do you're also a resident technician at the Theatre Royal in Nottingham.
Mhm.
And also know that you have another little business that you're part of called Flying Shark.
Well, actually, it's not that's my baby.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about it.
So a few years ago, once we were back in the UK, the name that I touched upon before, Natalie Dawson, I ended up taking a show for her, meeting some creative people through her, and they started a business, and we all kind of got involved with that. Show production. And I was sitting there kind of thinking, what can I do to make myself more valuable to this process?
Mm-hmm.
What can open up another avenue for it?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to look at drones. So I started looking into it, researching it, and this looks easy. So I ended up going off, doing some training, getting my PFCO, permission for commercial operations. So I was like, right, we can now open an aerial branch to this company. Met some other people through that, some absolutely amazing people who I'm still involved with heavily, to the point where it's like, actually, Flying Shark Media is myself and two of the other guys that I met along that journey. Because I'm very much aware that I can't do everything.
No.
I lean obviously more towards like the video side and the aerial side of stuff, but we've got a feature film director in there, somebody that's been working with video for as long as he can remember, and a professional photographer in there who also makes short films. So it's just like, let's work together and try and just run a business. And this is the kind of process that I'm in at the minute. Flying Shark Media has been going for a couple of years, but now we're on furlough.
Yes.
Now it's like, it's always only had probably about 30% of my attention, because I've been doing some obviously like doing the PAYE stuff. But now it's like there's been no better time for me to kind of get my head down and try and build and expand.
Absolutely. And it's something that can be used in so many different forms of filming for so many different kinds of events and situations. I mean, a lot of people would immediately assume that drone filming would be used on big Hollywood productions or big TV shows and things and stuff. But essentially, it's a part of sporting events. It's a part of festivals. It's a part of, I mean, even to an extent, small things like weddings and stuff and things like that. It's something that can be used to make something so much more unique, give a totally different feel and angle to whatever it's being part of. I mean, and I've seen obviously some of your work, over the years of you doing this, over the last couple of years of you doing it, and it is really, really great. It's really impressive. It really brings a totally different scope and a feel, whether it's being used in an advertising kind of manner to advertise something like a holiday park or an event, whether it's a sporting event and you're following, you're closing in and following on whoever the race is or where the action is. It's incredible. And like I said, it could be used in so many different formats, so many different styles and so many different events. Where can people find out about Flying Shark?
The best place would be the website, which is just www.flyingsharkmedia.com.
Excellent stuff. I would highly recommend getting involved with that if you're watching and you've got hopefully something coming up when restrictions allow. Now, speaking of restrictions and lockdown, how's the last 12 months been for you, sir?
Interesting.
Because I mean, a lot of people have a lot of negatives, and it's very easy to get focused on the negatives. But as we start to wrap up this interview, let's focus on the positives. I can think of one quite big positive that's come out of lockdown, or what
well, that's
should be a positive, certainly.
I'm taking it as such. Yeah, yeah. So we are expecting kind of within the next 3 to 5 weeks, basically.
Wow, it's that
Uh,
soon.
yeah,
When two
knocking
become
on the door.
three.
The
Are
lesser
you,
known Spice
you
Girls
know
song.
whether it's a boy or a girl?
I know it's one of the two.
Oh, good. As well, it might not be. Stranger things have
Well,
happened. So, perhaps you do have those superpowers and something odd's happened. So it's a beautiful fish.
Haley, what have you been up to? Yeah, so yeah, no, we don't. We've decided to find out when they get here.
That is brave, because I remember with R2, we found out straight away, mostly because we just wanted to prep a bit more, being that with my business I was hardly ever about and in and out all the time, and Scarlett was
Yeah,
due August, which is, for anybody who understands the industry, peak season. You're just gone for dust. So we kind of found out with each one, but you're braver than I am. I don't think I could do it that way, so fair play to you. So
but it's not been too bad. I mean, it's exciting, um, but we've been prepping the room next door, obviously, as a bit of a nursery. And it's just keeping it neutral colours, you know, and all the clothing and stuff
white.
is all, yeah, pretty much.
Well, get ready to
But
get some of these bad boys over the next sort of coming months, because these come for free. These
yeah,
come for free with kids, so
awesome.
you'll have a great time. You're going to be a great dad. What with how much you love computer games and superheroes and all of that side of it. So big Marvel fan like myself, obviously. So always good. Well, I think on that very positive note, we will start to wrap things up.
Mhm.
Greg, thank you so much for taking some time out.
No,
I
you're very
wish
welcome. It's been a lot of fun, actually.
it is fun, and that's the whole point of these things. We just want to find out some interesting things about the people that make Forever Jackson what it is. And as you said with Flying Shark, it can't, no one man business survives as a single person. You
Mm.
need a great team around you. And we've been very lucky to have you involved as part of that team over the years. Ongoing as well, just because you haven't done one for a while, for obvious reasons, with everything else that you've been doing and what we've been going through with a pandemic. It's always, we know for facts at some point we're going to be back together again at some point, which is always exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking
um,
forward to that.
it's going to be good fun when the doors allow it, when the
Mm.
doors open up and allow us to get back in there and do what we love to do. But thank you so much for your time today, sir.
No, you're welcome.
I wish
It's
you
been fun.
all the best in fatherhood,
Thank you.
and give Kaylee a squish for us.
I will do.
Not too hard, because obviously he's probably very uncomfortable at the moment.
Yeah, maybe from the side.
From the
That'd be easier.
side, yeah, and
Yeah.
sort of from the sort of ribs up from there, because lower you're gonna, that's not good. You don't want the toothpaste effect. So, so
Well, that's hideous.
but yes, sir. Thank you so much for today. Take care,
And
and
you, love to all.
we will see you next time. I will hit stop. Goodbye.